fellow Sublime Text fanatics. Welcome to this Monday live stream. Make sure my lights are all on. They are. They're good. How is everybody doing? Hope you had a fantastic week in this last week. Weird tail end of a song there. Hello, welcome. If you were here in the last Monday stream, then you know that the thing that we were actually working on was pushing out a new release of Override Audit, my package for Sublime Text that allows you to work with your overrides, to be version 2.2.5 with a couple of small bug fixes and, well, more features, really. I was going to put some bug fixes in and decided, you know what, there's no real bugs that are easy enough to solve in the general case. The whole goal of pushing out a new release was to have a new version so that we could do a cutover to allow for us being able to target Sublime Text 4 directly. Up until now, in the original version 1 of Override Audit, the minimum build was like 3012 or something along those lines, because that was the version that had the minimum number of features in Sublime Text that we wanted, right? And as long as you hit that minimum version just at the right point, then life is all good as far as maximum number of people being able to use the application. But when the first release was done, and I went back to actually make some modifications to things to make it a little bit better, I realized that the way that I had laid out the code as my first package of a large scale was something that was a little hard to deal with. So to that end, we engaged on the BSR, the Big Scary Refactor, where we took everything from a version 1 to a version 2, in which we decided that since we're going to be updating practically every file and creating a bunch of new ones besides, let's bump up the minimum revision number, because we had plans at the time to be able to do things with the command palette and input in the command palette specifically, which is something that wasn't available in the original versions of Sublime that we were targeting. Never actually got to that, but now we actually can. And now we've done this because Sublime Text 4 is out, and it has a bunch of new features, not the least of which is a new plugin host that allow us to run Python 8, which will clean things up a little bit and pave the way for us rather to start doing some cooler stuff along the way. There's a lot of work to be done in that regard. It's one of the things we're going to work on tonight, is switching ourselves from Python 3.3 to 3.8, and it's something that will probably be ongoing for a long period of time. It's going to be slightly complicated by the fact that my MacBook is dead, though, but we'll see what actually happens there. But everything all worked, and that is what we're going to work on tonight and for the foreseeable short future. Of course, as is always the case, if you have any questions about anything that we're doing here, please feel free to just drop those in the chat. The bot will mention it from time to time. Do not be worried whatsoever about derailing or interrupting or anything. A large part of the reason why we're here is that if you have a question, you can pop in and ask it. So without further ado, let us jump into the coding screen. So here we go. Now this is the last release that we did. Again, if we were with us on last Monday, we finalized the last couple of fixes and did a release of the package live right here. If you're interested in seeing how all of that went and how you actually go about doing such a thing, to a degree, there should be a link to a playlist down in the description of this video that will be the Sublime Text Live. You want the episode that's one smaller than this. You want live stream 125 is what you want to throw in there. And at the end of that, you'll actually see us doing this release. It's not 100% exactly identical to what you would do if you were doing something like this, because we had to make a modification to the channel file, which is something that would be a little bit more complicated if you were in a position that is different from mine and being able to host my own. But a lot of that stuff still tracks. So the next version that we're going to release is going to be a 2.3 version. So we're going to jump from 2.2.5 right up to 2.3. We're going to miss five minor point releases, if you can imagine such a thing. And so because we're going to be making some changes for that tonight, one of the things that I like to do is make sure that I'm keeping the changelog as up to date as possible as we go along with everything that we're doing here. So now we start by taking the version, the message for installations of people that are at version 2.2.5 in this particular case. We're going to save as that to 2.3.0 like so. Let's just reopen that so we can take that to 3.0, and then that is going to be, when's this released? I'm sure we don't know. But what we're going to say here is updated to use the new Python 3.8 plugin host. That's all we really need to put in there. So that's our stub for that file. If we're going to have that, then we're going to need to, modify this as well. Make sure that it's valid JSON. We'll change those to 3.0 as well. Now these are files that we're modifying here, are files that are used by package control. Sublime doesn't know or care about them, but it's part of the package control update mechanism. If you've ever seen a package install and display a package control message that says what actually happened, this is what drives that. This is the file that is shown to people that are doing an installation for the very first time, and then the other files are when version 1.0, if you upgraded from this version to 1.0.1, you'd see this content, and if you did this, you'd see this content, and so on down the line. If you jump multiple versions as an update, you'll get to see all of the interceding messages, but you don't otherwise get to see them. So it's a nice little message. It's not something that's strictly required. Because I don't do override audit releases like weekly or anything like that, I feel confident in putting messages in here to let people know that the package updated and there are certain features that it now has that it didn't have previously. If you were creating a package for Sublime that is updated frequently, if you're constantly pushing small little tweaks and bug fixes and the like, then you might want to not use messages for every update, maybe only for important milestone updates, because it will drive people crazy if every day when they start Sublime up, there's a new version of your package with a new message that they have to close and get out of the way. So the messages.json file is a control file that's used by package control. It points at the files. They can be absolutely anywhere. It's just associating a version number with the file, but I've taken the tack of storing them in this messages folder because that makes the most sense to me. So we modified those two files, and we're going to want to also modify the changelog as well. The changelog is going to have a similar sort of action here. That is going to be 2.3.0, and much like the other one, that's going to be, we don't know when it's going to happen, but we do know it is going to happen. It was made, which was made available in, whoops. And we're doing 2 blank lines between. Cool. So if we check out what changes we actually have here, we modified the changelog to have that. We added a brand new file for it, and we added a new entry to messages. So those are just going to sit there for the time being until we make our first change here, which tracks those changes. We might actually we need to also make sure that before we do anything stupid that we're in the master branch, which is the branch that we normally release off of. Stable always points to the version of this thing that was most recently released, which is those ones right there. These are the versions of it as it existed at various tags, and then I have a few branches in here for features that we were working on, which we will continue to work on in the future. The next one up is going to be browse panel enhancements, for example. So the first thing we're going to want to do is create a new file relative to the current view and name it .python-version and store 3.8 inside of it, and then quit Sublime and restart. We don't really have to do that, but it's going to make my life a little bit better, I think. You know what we're also going to do here just very quickly is disable Sublinet as well. We maybe do a stop and restart of that as well. Now let's just verify that when 3. Oh, we got to get rid of that thing because that's just irritating. You know what? Let's just quit and restart so we can get a fresh crack at the can. Make sure we actually named that file correctly. Okay. I gotta figure what that one's doing and what that other thing is for. Well, one thing we could actually do here is say package report. And look at override audit, and it should say that it's Python 3.8, and it is. So we have done that correctly. If we were looking through here, this is the bit that I was looking at. When we see it say that it's loading override audit, we should see it not say version 3.3 like so. It doesn't say the Python version unless it's running in the not the most recent one. I think is the logic that is associated with that. So the main thing about this, and the reason why we want to do this as soon as possible here, is related to pretty sure everything should be fully compliant with this change, but I want to do that first to give me more time using this locally to notice something untoward happening, essentially. So let's take a look for any usages of the % anywhere in a Python file, anywhere in here. Because those are all things that could theoretically be tweaked up to be nicer due to the magic of us using this. For example, here. This is the most obvious thing that I can... Oh, you know what? Hang on a second. That part's going to drive me nuts. Find dot minus name slash pi minus exec grep minus I and boy, don't do that, I guess, is what we learned there. VI, oh, let's do this. Autosave temporary buffers. All right, why is this printing that? It's doing it because of get tempdir is called whenever, oh. Gank. Well, we don't actually want that there. We know that. Let's rename that to be disabled for the time being. What was the other thing that we tend to see? My package is something along those lines. What's the thing? Yeah. My package name is. Well, that's unfortunate. Right, sorry. That was something that we were doing. We were playing, helping somebody figure out what the name of their package is. All right, that'll get that stuff out of the way. So let's see. We swap that to. That. Should we do that here too? It would look something like this. We should see it doing stuff. What have we done? Oh, I see. It is doing it. It's just doing it. There's so much of it there. There we go. You can totally see it saying .lib, then the module's lib, and then all of the different parts of it. So that part seems to be working dandily. So we don't want you. We don't want you. So that's one thing. I wonder if we should also consolidate on using the appropriate string type, because I think I keep flip-flopping between one and the other, which is kind of a drag. Next, it's going to be Sublime version. For return back appropriate meta information for that package. So if we were to reload this and then do that package report, that's where that thing comes from. Version Sublime space 4134. That's what this is doing. You know, if we do that, you can see that change right there. So, oops. That's nicer. I like that. How many of these are there going to be? Hang on a second. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it actually said, right? Ye gods. We're going to tweak up all of these. That'll be our main first fix of stuff. There we go. Okay, so we did that one. That one's cool. We did that one. That one's cool. Now, one that's a little bit shorter. I believe that means we gotta cut that and do that. So our spinner key works, and prefix and U. Then we don't need you. Not the most groundbreaking changes in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but they do make things a little bit cleaner. To be honest, it's something that I wasn't initially that keen, well, not keen on, but that initially that excited about as a feature. But that was before I spent a year and a half working with JavaScript, and at that point, the way that it allows you to use template strings does make life a lot easier. I don't use them as much here, I don't think, but and you got to remember to put one of those in there so that it'll actually do what you want. Let's close all of the files that aren't the one that we're currently dealing with. So there was only one there. That's a short list. So that's going to be one of those. Package name has no resources of the specific type, and this one here as well. We're going to be back in this file in a minute. Cool about that now. Core a big one. Core's a big one. Let's skip that one for the time being. Events. This is the stuff that we've been working on most recently. That also made me want to do something like this. Because looking at this as we are, so frequently when we were making those recent changes, something like this, I think, makes it a lot clearer what's actually happening in there, right? Assuming I'm doing it right, which I should probably, check from time to time. 21 files, you say. Create override in U. So that one's done. They're probably all going to be like that. Those ones are done. Yeah. These sorts of changes sometimes can be tedious, but once you start getting into the flow of it, it really does go fairly quickly. Since there's such a sameness about them. In fact, it's so samey that I don't necessarily need to even do that, but that one will be good. Yeah, all of the commands are going to be very similar in this regard. That one needs to be an F string, and that is going to wrap package, just like that one does. That one also. Should be all of those. We'll rerun the scan again when we're done, of course, just to make sure. Close those. Cut. Like so. And these ones are both going to be the same. There, and whoops. Shoot. For each one of these things, we need to make sure that we made all of the changes that were technically required for them. There we go. Great examples of how multi-cursor editing can really save you a lot of time and hassle for stuff like this. More so also using full keyboard shortcuts, which is totally possible for what we're doing here. We could be doing this entirely with key bindings without using the mouse to fold and unfold and the like. But when this is just a personal thing, I do like to use key bindings where possible. But when I'm doing sort of a rote task like this, I like to, on purpose, slow myself down a little bit, just to make sure that I'm not paying enough attention, not paying enough attention, i.e. that I'm paying enough attention, I guess is the situation. Because if you do the same thing time after time after time, it starts to get very habitual in the change that you're actually making. And when that happens, it's easy for a situation to change in the code that you're working with, and you don't notice it because you're so busy doing this thing that you have been doing like 30 times in a row, that you don't notice that there's a different or maybe an extra step or such that may be required. This one we might leave as is because it's not that great. What if we did overtype and did this so that we could say probably should have did that first. Then the override type is expired, if only expired, otherwise it doesn't need to display anything. So it can say no packages with expired overrides found or no packages with overrides found, either way, which is why that's an empty string. Was probably unhappy about that one in the first place, so that'll just make that a little bit nicer overall. So for that one, they're both going to be report. That one needs to be that, and that. What was this actually doing? It's using that object to get the key of the report type that it already got. Why is it defaulting to, oh, because that's the default for that, a bulk diff of whatever type of diff that actually is. Yeah, that makes sense. I got that one too, right? Yeah, I did. Okay, so that one's all done. And then this one. Whoops. And that's just going to be stub and context override. And a little bit of that action. Now that just leaves us with these ones that are kind of large, if you will. There's many of them kind of in the same spot here. So let's see. The override file is the package name / override file, and oh boy, oh boy. Right? Wait, where did that come from? Oh, sorry, that's part of the tuple. Teehee. We're gonna tweak these up in just a second, but I want to do this. This is an example of one of those things where if you were just doing this by rote, you might not notice that there's a slight change that's happening here. It would be nice if we can get rid of that. The header is equal to indent plus that, so that's going to be the start of that, and this one similarly, one would presume. That makes sense, right? I think so. If that was a different name, like packed and unpked, then they would line up a little bit nicer, but what can you do? Then we go to these are both going to be the same. So that and that are F strings, and don't do that, guy. That's a string format on purpose, so we're happy and okay with that one. Here we can go like you. Whoa. What was that? And here. Oh, it's selecting all the text. I gotcha. We're going to be violating a few of the rules regarding line length, but since I try not to be the slave of the linter anyway. I'm assuming that should work without incident. Now we changed the lines for things, so that's unfortunate. We're probably going to have to do that same thing again, huh? You and you. Like so. That one's still cool. There, and there are all things that we can delete that out. We can make those F strings, and then do that. That should be all of those four, right? Yes. Now, we're just unhappy about these two. And you. And there. Should be all the ones from that file, theoretically. And then we just need to worry about all these ones in the core, which are probably similarly done. This time, let's go bottom up, just for giggles. And that one we're going to leave well enough alone because that's pretty succinct on its own as what it's actually doing. So I'm not going to worry about that one. We will worry about this though. And it's going to be this one. Whoops. That one we got. That one. Log running shell command. That's a stirf time. We almost certainly don't care about that. You and you. Those ones are both going to be package. Da, da, da. I almost had a little bit of a day off at work today because various people, co-workers, were not around. They took days off, and as a result, it was almost like a day off for me because there wasn't anybody to ask questions or or talk to. Which is a little weird. It's going to be fixed tomorrow, though, so. This package is from the mysterious future. Here's one. You and you. Hey, that's weird. Oh, I guess not. Nice way to break stuff, though. Get rid of those. Package info name, override, stir error. That's going to be one of those, and then we're going to go like that. Look at me breaking linter conventions all over the place. Somebody stop me. There we go. Hello. How do? Wait, does Python just concatenate multiple things together? It does, doesn't it? Son of a... Alright, well. I probably boned that up. I forgot that it does that. Haha. Awesome, great to hear. We are doing the first of the exciting things with Override Audit now that we are in an area where we know that we're using Sublime Text 4 and Sublime Text 4 only, which is making it use the new plugin host. And we're probably going to have to swing back through this after just a second here, because I just realized as you were arriving that I did something kind of silly in one of the other ones that we were doing. Good grief. Yeah. That's perfectly cool. We're going to leave that well enough alone. We will, however, that. We're going to have to do another search to make sure that we hit all of the places that we care about. You are going to go away and become that. I pushed that a little bit too soon. I think we are almost there. That one's going to look a lot nicer. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do that same search again and see what hits we get. Sturf time, don't care. Sturf time, don't care. There's one we missed in the core. Sturf time, don't care. And there's one we missed in diff report. All right, well, that's pretty okay as these things go. And the one we missed here was this one with the package name and you. If we're going to have a long line, we might as well have a long line, right? And that should be everything. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at files that we touched and see if we want to clean those up a little bit. So that part's totally cool. Yeah, we're happy about that change log. That's nice. This string is an F string that uses Sublime version. That looks right. This one uses package name and override file and is an F string, so that looks right. Those ones were strings that are indent plus another string together. They're both F strings with indent in the front and wrapped around packed and unpacked, so we're cool with that. These are the ones that we just saw a second ago. I think these appear in a couple of different places. Packages display just as their name unless they're dependencies, in which case they display with angle brackets, and if they're disabled they display in a slightly different way yet again. Okay, those are F strings and wrapped, so those are probably cool. That's an F string that wraps self name. That's an F string that matches package file name. These are ones we don't need to do this with. We should be able to just do that, I would think. I will, however, bump that. This is all subject to this thing actually loading, by the by. So that's an F string that combines that together. We'll see if this is actually valid, because this happens at runtime. I know the Python compiler will coalesce adjacent strings, but maybe that only works for constant strings. We might have to come back to these and go ahead and add the plus back in, but for the time being, we're cool. They're F strings, they're self-package file and override file as we would expect. All Fs, the name is in there. Can't load this package, no file, can't decode it, permission denied, don't know what happened. Those are both F strings using the name on this bad boy. Yes, yes. And here's another one that probably has a plus that doesn't technically need one. Like so. So we say error loading, that's an F string. Oh, I guess we need to do that as well because Captain Pedantic requires the linter to be unhappy later. But that part's cool. That's an F string. That's an F string with the prefix followed by the spinner text. Yes. It seems like it's going to be fine. F string with the length of the situation. Yes. New message file added. That's the one we did first. Makes those things look a little bit nicer. F string uses package name. Yes. And oh, look, there's one we forgot. This is why we do these kinds of checks. It needs to have the F in front of it, otherwise it's not going to be treated as the appropriate sort of thing, and it's not going to do what we want. Oh, and we boned that up too, because that's not supposed to be there. In fact, we might as well just do that, because that line up here is kind of ugly anyhow, so what the hell. So instead of being a 2-line regular string that uses the tuple format, it's a single line F string using the new syntax. Yes, yes. There's a few that look like this. Just the package name and an F string. Package name and, the stub and the context override as an F string. And stub and context override as an F string. We forgot to do that. See, even though we were going slow, it was still a little mistake in there, but it's no big deal. This is why one of those things that people talk about a lot is, like, I need a key binding and merge to do this and to do that. I want to be jumping around and adding things and committing. And I totally can see why someone would want to do that, because if you have a lot of Git operations to do, you want to make sure everything is cool. When it comes to Git, I like to do my due diligence and take my time and look at the stuff that I am committing to make sure that it's what I expected, because sometimes that's not the case, Sometimes it doesn't, you may have done something slightly differently or forgot something, and that rubber ducking of going carefully over it and looking at it makes it easier to note that that's what's happening. Oh, look at that. That one just had some trailing white space for some reason. Oh, well, yeah, let's keep that, most definitely. Now, for you, my friend, that's an F string with the file, and that is an F string with the reason. Cool. F string with package info name. Yes. Update in the video arena. The new system has been fully configured, and I've updated all of my templates. I spent a lot of time coming up with new templates and new assets to go in there so that the new videos will flow smoothly. I do have a bit more work to do in finalizing my workflow to make sure that I'm making the best use of my time, but we draw ever closer. I also thought it might be possible on the new system for me to stream some video editing sometimes if people are interested in seeing how these things come together. And we could also do a live stream where I'm back there working and we're just you're seeing this and you can sort of see the recording process happen as well. I don't know how interesting that might actually be to anybody, but I know that at least one person has expressed an interest in it. That is going to be an F string. That's correct. And that's 2 F strings. Yep. Freshen overrides in context package. Looks so much nicer. That one's just going to be confusing no matter what way you slice it. More trailing white space in that one. Weird. And now, this one we swapped into two things. So there's an override type because we were sort of straddling so that it wasn't super long, and it would look awful if all of that was inside of there. So we decided not to do that in that particular case. Those are both F strings on the report name. That's stub and context override on a F string. Two new files, the new changelog and the new Python file that sets our version number to Python 3.8. Let's do this one because that's hover text and hover text colon package as F strings both. Yeah, it's an exciting time, isn't it? The part of this thing that makes me the most nervous to update, which is why we're not going to do it right away, is being able to use the new path lib instead of os.path. Blah 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 blah, because there's a lot of, I think we've run into problems with this in other streams. There's a little bit of a divide in things that you have to be very careful about, because package paths always use forward slashes no matter the platform, but file system paths use backslashes on Windows, and the path lib knows about it, so you have to take special care. And it's something that I spent a lot of time getting right in the initial versions of this thing. And my MacBook blowed up, which is what I normally would have used to test this, which makes life a little bit sadder still. Speaking of F string and whoops, there's that. What are the other exciting things that I could be doing here besides just these two? Is the question. Because those are the two big things that come to mind. Being able to use F strings and being able to use pathlib. There may be some stuff that we're doing that would be, is that actually in a branch? I'm not sure. Oh, I bet you it is. Yeah, it's nothing that's actually in the override audit code right now, but in the code where we're working on being able to create and package up diffs to pass them around, I had to hand implement some stuff that exists in Python 3.7 and 8 and so on, but not in 3.3. I think it started in 3.6. As a matter of fact. So when we get to that branch, that's both going to be happy and awful at the same time, vis-a-vis rebasing one branch on top of another. I'm not super looking forward to that, I'm not going to lie. May or may not actually be required at any given point. Those are both F strings, and that seems cool. F string. Oh, there's one we forgot. There we go. Name and override, right? Yes. F string for package info name and override. Looks good. And F string that yeah, that one's kind of awful, but what can you do? Sublime version, comma 4. Okay, that's cool. Package name and override. Presumably. Yeah. Oh, those are ones that actually didn't need to change because they were logs. But I kind of like the idea of logging it in a more sensible fashion. So that's kind of ironic now that we're actually looking at that. Those sorts of things didn't necessarily need to be tweaked, but this looks nicer as a format string, I think. Got that part right? Yes. Unable to freshen package. Doesn't exist. Doesn't have overrides. Is not a package. Stir E. Yes. Package F strings. Yes. It's going to be exciting to see this actually compile or not, isn't it? That's a nice one. Yep. And you. All right. They end up a D in there. All right. Here's where the spit hits the sham. So that all actually loaded, huh? OA package report. Still has the appropriate stuff on. Cool. Uh-oh. Oh, no, that's supposed to happen. Those are all working. Cool. All right. As the first steps in our that is Sublime Text 4 based. 2.8 plugin host. String formatting so that we take there's more updating work still to do, such as that thing that I just finished talking about a minute ago. Which is let's make sure we spell that stuff correctly, huh? Cool. That's on master. I even did it correctly. Now, the next little bit of action here is, whoops, what's that? Is that cool? Oh, no, go away. Stop it. Hang on a second. Okay, I think that's probably fine. That'll do. That'll do. There's a few things here. We did some work in patch. Maybe we should actually try to rebase those branches on top of this one and see how unhappy any of those particular changes make to us. Oh, because we touched syntaxes. Oh, good grief. Oh, that's going to make everybody unhappy. That's going to make everybody unhappy in the extreme. And by everybody, I of course mean myself. So let's do this. Not patch files, but browser panel enhancements. We can see what we actually did here. The larger part of that change is that if we did something like create override, oh, it's going to blow up now, is it? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. There we go. We made it kind of unhappy with fiddling stuff around in the interim there. It was probably like half updated and half not, based on changes that we were making to files. But now this is a package that is shipped with Sublime Text, and this is installed as a Sublime package file. And if we were to look up user, if there is such a thing, and there isn't, so override audit. Oh, did I say create override there? I did, didn't I? OA open resource. We'll show unpacked packages as well. Unpacked in packages folder only. Should probably verify that that's not a lie. Oh, we can update this too, can't we? Hang on. Let's close all of that nonsense. Everything we did, let's see. Ah, yes. So we did a couple of things here. One is we can ask for a quick panel item, and that'll give us the shipped, if this has a shipped path. Otherwise, the installed packages path, if it has an installed package, good grief, and unpacked if not, which is why the kind information in fact says unpacked in packages folder only, because the only time that one can hit if either of those two things aren't there. So if there is something that is in both situations, you only see the one. So for us, override audit, override audit is you because it's unpacked only. But if we did something that shipped and unpacked, like the default package, when we do this, whoops, not what I meant to do. I feel like I have a sneeze coming, and it's not coming. The default package says that it's shipped with Sublime because it is. There are unpacked files, but it's trying to give us determinations about the thing as a whole. So that's the first part of that change. The thing for packages can tell us at this particular instance whether for any given package, what should its quick panel item look like with kind information, and the browse code when it's annotating contents inside of the browse for packages. Instead of just using the name of the thing, it calls, oh sorry, we made annotate contents here just because that list is kind of long. It returns a list of stuff, which is how that all works out, and we had to change that text a little bit. So that part's all working okay. Now the other part of this, wait, what? Quick panel item. Yeah, I thought so. That part hasn't been updated. A call to show quick panel may opt in to receive a second arg to the undone callback by specifying the flag. Quick panel flags want event. Yeah, that's not really what we're interested in here. Placeholder. As far as readable documentation goes, I'm not a super fan of the signature thing that we have here, but we're looking for just some placeholder text we can throw in there. And now it behooves me to know what version did we constrain this to. LC126. The most recent version, I would imagine, right? Good news. Good news, everybody. A little bit of extra action that we can use here. We may amend that commit, because we modified this. So that's package browser. We're giving it the self, the window. When this actually displays the, let's do this. Self.placeholder is equal to package for a thing in this particular case. When we call browse, we call show quick panel, and we say placeholder equals self.placeholder. So if that reloads, then if we were to create override, that says package for a thing, and if we did override audit open resource, that says package for a thing, although they do slightly different stuffs. So the next question is, where is this referenced? Only here? How to best convey this information? Let's do the same thing in this one. This is package resource browser, right? Yes. We're going to say self.placeholder equals resource for a thing. This one's the more complicated one, which is why we never did anything with it previously. So if we did override audit open resource, choosing a package for a thing and then a resource for a thing. And if we did override audit create override, that's package for a thing, resource for a thing. So that part's working. In order to provide more context on what's actually happening in there. I kind of want to use a list input handler for that, but the nature of how it needs to keep calling itself as you go in and out of folders, and that's something I want to screw around with at the current time. How would you define the context for a specific output panel? Say I wanted to have a key binding active only if the panel name was language server. Is there not a context for that? Terminal's asking a question and I have no choice but to answer it because that is my way. There's a panel context. And that panel is open and visible. There we go. That'll make life a little bit better. I can't not help people. It's a thing. All right, now. What are we gonna do for this thing? Because if you're gonna call, the only time package browser is called is from inside of this file, and the only time resource browser is called is from inside of this file, which doesn't necessarily track. It just so happens that that's all that's happening right now, and this is only called from one particular location because this can be used to create an override or open, depending on which way you run it. If you tell it to include existing, then it does something slightly different. The idea of these things, by the way, is that the package browser allows you to select a package from a specific type of packages, and you can specify what kind that you want and filter them. So it also basically the list can be constrained to be like only packages that have overrides, only packages that don't have overrides, whatever you like. It's going to show you a list of packages in a quick panel and allow you to pick one, and when you do, it triggers a callback, specifically when you call the browse. When you give it a list of packages to browse through and say when it's done, and it'll filter the list of packages and then display some stuff. Resource browser does the exact same thing, only for you give it a package that it should do something inside of, and it will find all of the resources inside of that and then offer them to you and tell you which one you picked. This one's more complicated because it needs to split all of the string package resources out into path names hierarchically. You can specify whether you want to return to a specific package or not. But in this particular case, you have to give it a package info. Hello! How you doing, Vitals? Are you vital? Mauricio Tamez, am I pronouncing that correctly? How has your week been going? I think we need to modify the init for both of these to have a placeholder in the place where we tacked it in. We'll add it as a last argument. And then we can modify the other one to take it. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to say package browser. Placeholder equals select a package, let's say. And then self.placeholder is equal to placeholder. Oh, doing pretty good myself, gotta say. I kind of had a semi day off at work, in as much as the manager had the day off, and then one of the my teammates also had the day off. So I didn't have a lot of people asking questions and dragging me into meetings. I actually got to get stuff done. It was quite exciting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, you know, do you see a part of anything up there? Say something now. The magic of that is that unlike Twitch chat, it starts at the top and goes down instead of the other way. So we either see the top part of the chat and then the bottom part trims off, or you see the bottom part and the top part trims off. So it just so happens that there hasn't been a lot of live chat yet. If the chat is hopping enough, then it very quickly spools up and then you can't tell that anything's happening. But it's been kind of a quiet Monday. One of the annoyances about YouTube chat, someday we got to do a custom YouTube chat overlay, but I don't know how easy YouTube makes it to get at the actual chat that's happening in the message. Besides anything else, it's also quite slow about it too. Placeholder equals select a resource, and that would just be that. All right. Hello, Cyberlenka. See, now the chat's hopping. You came in and you totally brought everybody with you. Okay, select a package, select a resource. Cool. And if we did override audit, open resource, that will select a package, select a resource. Cool. So now, the worst part of this whole situation is here. We're going to say package placeholder. We can't do that there, can we? Oh, God. Oh, wait. How many places is this being called? Only one, right? That's nice. We don't want to... Oh, maybe we should swap that to be slightly different. New plan. Let's do it this way. This way says that the value of the placeholder argument, if you don't provide it, is the text. Select a package. Here we're going to say the value of it is none, but if you don't specify one, you get this, but if you do specify one, you get that, but otherwise it should all work the same way. And the reason for that is so that in the init of this one, we can say package placeholder equals none and res placeholder equals none. And then as arguments here, we grab that and copy them and say u, comma, placeholder equals blob. Is it a long call? Yes. Is it an ugly call? Shoo betcha. But that makes that a little bit nicer for us here. So previously, we would have had to most definitely pass one in. Because the magic of this is if you don't give this argument a value, that's the value that it gets. We want to have these have a default value of none. That would require that, you know, we make more stuff here. So if we did everything correctly, there should be no visible change. If we open resource, it still says select a package, select a resource as the placeholder up at the top there. And if we did override out create override, it still works the same way. Now, the magic of this is in this call. Wherein we need to remember exactly how this thing actually works. Oh, hell. Sorry. You. The ultimate. This is the only place that this is being called right now. That's going to be the lambda. Then we're going to do a little bit of that action. Don't do that, guy. That's not cool. We'll add some commas in places to make it still compile. There we go. Now, the problem, such as it is that override audit create override does two things. If a package or a file name is missing, prompt for the given item and reinvoke. When given a file but no package, the file is ignored and the user will be prompted. I'm pretty sure that the difference between these two things is only in arguments. Create override and open resource both use this, but include existing set to true means that you basically, because the command is named create override. This part probably doesn't make a lot of sense if you don't know what it is that we're actually doing here. So the 10,000 foot overview of all of this stuff is that Sublime has a number of packages that it comes with. You can install packages yourself. Most of the time packages are installed as Sublime package files, which is just a zip file with a different extension that contains resources like plugins and syntaxes and menus and key bindings and all that kind of stuff. Some of them are shipped with Sublime Text. That's what the S means. Some of them are installed as those kinds of package files, those zip files, user installed stuff. And some of them are unpacked, which means there's just a folder with loose files sitting in it inside of the packages folder of Sublime Text. And the magic of package resource loading in Sublime is that if there is a file named, for example, in this case, after the package, default.sublime package, and there's a folder named default in the packages folder, then both of those two things combine together to be one package, and anything that's loose in this directory overrides what's in the shipped version of this. So an example of that would be this. If we view the differences in that. Oh, unless I broke it really hardcore. Oh, I broke it hardcore. How did I do that? Uh-oh. One of those things. Diff. Single package. Default. No, we're going to be unhappy about that, huh? Well, son of a bitch. The ultimate idea of that, of course, is that that's what's referred to as an override, and these commands are for either creating a new one or opening an existing one for editing. So the reason why these commands have names, it's the same command. Here you're going to create an override. Here you're going to create an override, but include existing overrides in the list. The idea being that this one, once you override a resource, it doesn't offer you to create it again because it's already there. Now, why did that part break is the unfortunateness here. It's related to stuff that we just did, undoubtedly. So we're unhappy in this. Oh no. Oh, I see. Oh, that's not cool at all. Packages pi 576. Zfile.open. Why were we using RU in there? Because they don't like the U no mo. Z file is zip file, so pydocs zip file. Of course you're in the wrong tab. Why wouldn't you're in the wrong browser? Why wouldn't you be in the wrong browser? Womp. There we go. Work with zip archives. The thing we did was the zip file constructor, and from the result of that we said open. So that bit there, collapse that. Open a zip file where a file can be either a path or a file, a string or a file-like object. The mode parameter should be R to read an existing file, W to truncate a file and write a new file, or A to append. If mode is A and file refers to existing zip, additional files are added to it. Why the hell? Why is there a U in there? We had no reason to do such a thing? Man, I wrote that a while ago. I wonder. Do we have any specific? And it was always there. Still there. Holy crap, that's a big message. This is where we added it. No specific info there. Less interesting. Some of these file histories are kind of wacky because I asked for that particular line, but we totally jacked a bunch of crap. This is the original version of the file. This is stuff from before the BSU, if you will. Python zip file open mode U. Was there any reason for that? Yeah, it's one of some of the first stuff that I created. This is the first big Sublime Text package that I ever worked on. I wouldn't be surprised. Mm, what is the non-deprecated version of OpenU mode? Okay. What's the not in Python greater than 3 use new line and oh, universal new lines? Yeah, we definitely don't need that. Look, and I only did it in one spot, too. Oh, no, I did it there, too. Or is that the one that I just touched? Here, how about this? Well, that's not going to work. If mode is RU, and twice. Why would I have thought that that was required there? A little bit, but not much. I prefer to keep my Vim key bindings in Vim. If I do Vim stuff in too many things that aren't Vim, then suddenly I'm canceling out of emails by pushing escape after I finish typing a line. It's a whole bad scene. Let's look for open. That's read. That's read. That's the mode, which is read binary or read. That's mode read. That's mode read. That's read. That's binary or that. Did it loop around? It did, didn't it? Yeah. All right. Now, if we were to say that thing we did before, OA diff single package default. Now it works again. There we go. So this is an example of an override, if you will. There's a file named default.sublime package that is stored somewhere that contains a bunch of default functionality in Sublime. One of those things is this paste from history plugin file that allows you to paste from your copy history. You get to see stuff like this. Sort of a list of stuff that you have previously copied, basically. The version of it that ships with Sublime uses a little pop-up menu and shows you a single line. I like the more context of the quick panel, so I've overridden this by adding an extra code that uses, instead of show pop-up menu, it shows quick panel for that sort of thing. So because I created a file name paste from history inside of the package folder named after defaults, whenever Sublime loads the default package, it only loads this file. It never loads the one that it shipped with, which allows my changes to be put in place, and it makes sure that your changes aren't lost, because when packages are upgraded, the Sublime package file is thrown away and replaced with a new one. So if you modify the contents of the archive, your changes get unceremoniously thrown away without warning. And the purpose of this entire package that we're working on is to help you work with these sorts of things like this, and tell you when you might potentially be having a problem with it. So that will fix that particular problem. Let's throw that in right now. Whoop. That actually should be part of that. So let's do this. The change that we made here was to change that and to change that. So we'll just commit that as a fix up. And we'll stash I probably shouldn't have done that, huh? No, I probably shouldn't have done it that way. Let's put that back to the way that it was. Let's just stash that and check out master again. And pop the stash. Oh, for Christ's sake. Life is sad all over. In any case, we can just save and stage that. Yeah, we're fine with it. And so let's see. Create override. We don't really care about that change. Create override or browse. We don't really care about that change. We really only care about the change to here. Redo both of those things. We can amend the previous commit with just that one staged file and modify it. And to fix to how we open some files, since we were using the universal new lines option. Mode string, which is now fully deprecated. Okay. We go like that. And then we can discard all those changes. Then we swap back to browse panel enhancements and rebase it back onto that, and then pop the stash. And then it's as if we made that change in an appropriate fashion. Now this change has the changes that we originally made, plus those couple of things that we just stuck in there. So not only do we change all those strings to format strings, but now that's in there too, and it's as if we did that part originally. That's the original commit, and here's the changes that we're working on, so we can go back to doing what it was that we were trying to do in the first place. Hooray! This is the sort of thing that happens from time to time, you know? So as we were saying originally, the difference between overriding a resource and opening a resource is whether or not existing overrides should be included in the list. So now we can actually show an example of that in use. So let's close that. We're going to leave that. We're going to need that. We're not going to need that. So, for example, if I create an override report, it's going to show me all of the packages that exist that it knows about and what things that it contains inside of them that are overrides. So in the case of the default package, something that provides default functionality for Sublime Text, it ships with Sublime. There's also a folder that contains these two files. So those two files are overrides. Similarly, the binary file contains an override for no good reason. This little indication means that this file exists in this folder, but it's not part of the package. It's a reminder to me that if I thought that it should be a part of the package, I forgot to add it. And if that used to be an override and now it's not, it means the HTML package updated and that file wasn't in it anymore. So what I thought I was doing, I'm not doing any longer. And for Python, we have that as well. So check it out. If I was to say override audit, open resource, and choose the outliner package, there are this many files, and this tells us that that's an override and that's an override as a part of this operation. Those three are not. And those two files there, default Sublime key map and outliner color scheme, are the two files that you see there. It knows these 5 files exist in the zip file and those 2 files exist in the folder. That's how it knows that that's an override. But we're telling it we want to open a resource. So if we want to open the color scheme, we can actually see what it looks like, for example. On the other hand, if we choose override audit, create override, and pick the outliner package, now it only shows us three things. It doesn't show us the color scheme, and it doesn't show us the key map, and it doesn't show us because this is for creating an override. There already is one. You don't need to create it again. It can't be more created. The file already exists on disk. This is implemented with just the one command because this command does the same thing for both. It'll try to load the file. If it doesn't exist, it pulls it from a different source to make it actually appear there, and it takes a little bit of extra work. So the change that we're making here is that when we make a package resource browser, we should tell it what the placeholder text for choosing a package is and what the placeholder text for choosing a resource is. And all we got to do here is set those two things up. So here's what we're going to do. If I do this, existing, and if we do the same thing here, this is creating, like that. What's that? There we go. Last week, I received 5 calls from LinkedIn recruiters. They all asked me common JS questions, what my expected salary was, and good coding practices. At the end, they asked me my seniority and working experience. I said none, I'm a junior, and they basically said thanks, goodbye, and never wrote back. It's one of the cliches of our industry. I would like to hire a new developer for our part of the company. I want this person to be fresh out of college, because people that are fresh out of college are more malleable. They haven't been beaten down by the industry. Their skills are top notch. And you can pay someone that just got out of college a hell of a lot less than a senior developer. If someone could somehow get out of college with a degree and also still have 15 years of seniority so that I know that you can do the job, that would be fantastic. I'm like, dude, pick one or the other. You either want to pay top dollar for someone that you definitely know will be able to do the job, or you want to give somebody a chance to grow into your position. You can't have it both ways. It just doesn't work. And it's a gigantic pain. I agree with you. Okay. If we create a resource, it says we're creating and creating for a resource, and if we say we're opening a resource, then it's existing and existing. Cool. So we just need to put the appropriate text in this, and this part will be done. What do we want to put here? Naming things is hard. This kind of text stuff is kind of hard too. It's the only thing you can do. Someone will give you a chance, and they will be glad that they did. When I started at the company that I work for right now, which I've worked for 23 years, it was the very first coding job that I had after college, you know? And what they did was they put me on a probation, if you will. They said, you can work here. We're going to pay you this. It's well below industry standards. You got to prove yourself to, you know, prove yourself. And for the next 6 months, we're going to have that guy over there watching what you're doing. And we reserve the right to fire you in the next 6 months if there's any part of your work ethic or workflow or, you know, productivity that doesn't align with us, you know, sort of an out. They didn't want to be roped into like a 2-year contract or a 5-year contract or something. Minimizing, you know, risk on their end. And within a year, I had received 3 raises that brought me up to the level that, you know, someone of my experience at the time should have been getting after I, you know, had proved myself. And I was fine with that because I was new to the industry. I don't know that all places do that, but one way to think of it is, do you want to work for a company that is that way, you know? Because it kind of speaks to a corporate culture to some degree. Maybe yes, maybe no, but it's one of those things that makes you think, you know? Do I want to work for a company that's like, no, I want you to have 30 years experience? Yeah. That's fair enough. If we were opening a resource, then that could say that, and this could say create override in package, and this, if that's opening a resource in this would be, say, resource to open, and this would be something along those lines. So open resource from package, AppleScript, resource to open, comments, and here it is. Or create override in package, ActionScript, override the syntax test, which is blissfully empty. I'm happy with that. Because it's if and end if is a C++ preprocessor type situation, and anything that involves the C preprocessor is inherently tricky, such as it is. It's possible to define a macro that includes an end if, so the only way to be sure that something matches another thing for surezies is to run the preprocessor on the code, and the syntax doesn't do that. It can only do stuff with the tokens that actually exist at the current time. It's kind of a side spin-off on the reason why it's impossible to tell if something is a macro or not, or if something is a type def or not, or a variety of other C-related things that to us are obvious because we're familiar with the code and we know what that thing means. But just looking at it lexically, the fact that the preprocessor could be doing absolutely anything with the code in the file makes it tricky to figure out what's what. For example, same also applies to C++ and Objective-C and the like. The text could use some... I don't mind that, though. I don't mind that. You know what? Maybe we bump that down the other way. I think we could do that. Because I don't think any of those things are touching. Oh, that one probably is. Well, let's see. We're going to say that the package resource browser now takes a placeholder as an argument, which has a default. And when it opens the panel, it uses it. And the one for resource browsing also has a placeholder, and it uses it when it opens the panel. And the overall package resource browser that bundles both of those things together takes both of the annotations for the placeholders and passes them off to those two things when it creates them. All right, that's all we need for that. And then here we actually set the placeholders. So let's say allow placeholders in the package browser panel. The ability to set a placeholder in the input field. Basically, yeah. If the overall thing is that anything that doesn't have an underscore in the front of it is something that, okay, unlike JavaScript, where you have to explicitly export symbols that you want to be part of a module, in Python, every file is itself a module, and everything in it with hand waviness that we're going to talk about in a second is automatically always exported. So any symbol that's in there, you can always import it from another module by saying from blah import this, right? Or import blah from blah, however you want to say it. If you put a single underscore in front of it, the difference is in when you say import star to bring all of the symbols in, something with an underscore in front of it, a single underscore, doesn't get pulled in the all import, but other stuff will. You can still manually import it if you want by saying import underscore annotate contents from. So that'll still work. It means it's private in the sense that you don't get it by default. You have to go out of your way to grab it, and by convention, everybody knows that if it's named that way, it's meant to be private. If there's two underscores in front of it, then it actually is private and it can't be pulled out at all. And in this particular case, there are some things that have names that are predefined, like init and repr and del and the like, that are constructors, destructors, the toString method sort of deal. It's kind of a neat little system, realistically. By adding in package, resource, and sorry. Adding in the ability in the package, resource, and package resource browsers to set what the placeholder will be. Currently, the only thing that invokes this is the command that both creates an override and opens an existing one. That's been updated so that it passes in appropriate placeholders. All right, now we're going to commit that, and then we're going to commit seppuku when we try to move this commit down and it conflicts. Because on the left, there wasn't anything there, and on the right, there was. We added in the placeholder. Now, that's the only thing that's going to conflict here, right? The fact that we did that is cool. This is the part that's conflicting. We want the placeholder to be there. We don't want the other part to be there. If I'm remembering all of this correctly. I'm really doing myself a disservice on this one. Let's verify this. The commit that we're moving just has placeholders. The one that comes before it is the one that adds kind information. So we don't want... What we're doing here is taking away anything that might be using kind information. So if we edit this commit and move it down in the history, then when we resolve this, we want essentially the placeholders, but with that part of the line is really the deal here. So because there is no trigger, is that the only conflict? Yeah, it is. That's the thing we just added, and that's what we're trying to bring to this. So I think we want that and that, and then that goes away. So we show the quick panel with the items, the on select, and why are we unhappy about that? Let's save and stage it and then unstage it. We can take a look and see. That we still want there. This should only have crap we did for placeholders. So that part's good. That part, oh, it doesn't have a comma on the end of it. That's why it's unhappy. Wants it to be more like that. There we go. Placeholder, 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 placeholder. That word is losing all meaning. Placeholder, placeholder. So now we can stage that file and continue the rebase. And now we're going to conflict for the same thing in the other direction. Now we want all the annotation BS in there. So we want this one, but we want this to say dot trigger like that one does. And just to verify, that still loads, and we open resource. Open resource from package, default, resource to open, Python version, there it is. Or over.create, override. In the ASP package, let's override ASP.sublime syntax. Cool. The whole point of that operation is we should put I wanted to put the placeholders in first and then modify this, because we're not done with this yet. This updates the package browser, but we still need to do the resource browser. And that's the part that's a little bit more complicated in this whole operation, realistically. Let's take a look at it very briefly. YouTube streams, I usually stop around 10 o'clock, and I think I have an early morning meeting tomorrow. Again, to make up for how people weren't here today. So let me just double check that to make sure that I'm not talking out my butt. Nobody wants to talk out their butt. And Yeah, that's what I thought. Kubernetes onboarding indeed. Poop. If we take a look at the change that we made to this, which didn't happen recently. Yes. And we are going to go long on that one, undoubtedly. Well, longer than this, that's for sure. Depending on, maybe the situation on this is actually not as bad as I think it is. In which case, I don't even need to worry about this, you know? And we can go ahead and try to pull it off. We have added this item called annotate contents, whose whole point is to, for all of the packages that we get, figure out what quick panel item it actually needs so that we can use it in the get contents call, which is used in the browse call to get the items that are passed to the show quick panel. So you call show quick panel, we need the items. Where do we get the items? By calling get contents. Where do we call get contents? Figures out the list of stuff that should actually be displayed and then annotates it so that it has those objects that say this one's shipped, this one's, you know, whatever. Which is the whole point of that, is adding these little do-jobbies on the side here like this. The other thing that we need to do is the exact same thing, but in the resource browser. And this one is a lot more complicated than that one is. Because when this one browses, it calls get package content. Get package content has to do a bunch of crap to figure out what's actually supposed to be displayed in there. And it has to keep them in a specific format. And it's exploding them out as well. And then it returns the contents of the stuff that was exploded. If it only has to do that one time, that might not be too terrible. Because this get package contents, basically you're giving it package info for a specific package. It says, is the name of that package in the cache of stuff that we've done? No, do this. Otherwise, just return the stuff in the cache. Yeah, this is some of the most complicated stuff that's in here. And basically what it's doing is this. If I say open resource and pick the default package, then what we see here is a list of all of the files that exist in there, plus this one that looks like a folder. And inside of that, there's also some other stuff, right? And then we can go back to that. If I went to view package file and said default /, we get to see all of the files that exist inside of the default package. This is functionality that's built into Sublime. And it's just a list of files. But if we get down here near the bottom of this bad boy, there are a lot of files in here. We eventually see, I guess I might need to spin that a little faster, that there's this full name is default /send to trash /platform windows, because it's just all one file name that it uses. So this code does a couple of things. First of all, it has to look inside of the zip file and grab all of the files that are in there. Then it has to look inside of the folder on disk and get all of the files that are there. Then, if we're supposed to only display certain things, like only overrides, that's this list. Only resources that exist in the package, that's this list. And if you want, we might need to say, this is the list of files that exist in the package, but remove the overrides. That's what this part here is doing. It's basically a set operation to remove from the list of the contents of the package anything that's an override. So if we're supposed to only look at overrides, that's what we're looking at. Otherwise, it's those two things. It has to do that for all of the resources, and then it has to explode them. And the explosion is the interesting part of this operation. I think this is why we sort of put this one off. It takes something like default slash sent to trash slash index and says this is a folder named index, and inside of it there are some files. It basically puts the file content back in. So I named it explode because, you know, that was cool. Explode a list of files that represent package file contents into a dictionary which describes their logical path layout. The dictionary has keys that indicate the files and folders stored at this level, with each folder also being represented as a key. And that is calling one other thing, which is this bit here. Maybe we can see an example of this. Let's print this. And then we can print package info.name. Just name, thanks. And that. And then let's print self.cache for package info.name. And let's do that. And let's do this too. Okay. So let's see. If we clear the console and say we want to create an override in a package, we need to pick something that actually has some folders inside of it. So let's say Python, the Python package. So what this has given us is the name of the package is Python, and it contains all of these things, which are themselves it's just a list of things. This one's named snippets slash new property and snippet slash try except, because these are just single entries that are all of the stuff. But now in this exploded version, we say that the list of files is the comments, the completion rules, the console input, the widget, the default key map, the fold, the indentation preferences, etc., etc., etc. And then at this level, there's also some folders. There's a folder named snippets in here. Inside of the snippets, there are some files named, you know, try else except, and that, and that, and that. And if there was, are there any folders inside of the snippets? No. Here's another way to see the same thing. If I clear this console, maybe we also modify this a little bit too. Hang on. Because we can make life a little bit easier for ourselves by doing this. Can't remember how to do that offhand. Hang on. So let's not do that. It'll be too tricky. We're gonna create, no, we're gonna override audit, open resource, and we're gonna choose the user package. This is a gigantic pile of crap. It includes a lot of folders and what for. I guess that probably would have been better to be actually formatted. So, but yeah, on the whole, because we want to browse it in that sort of hierarchical fashion, if you will. Now, I think the issue that we have with this situation is that when you browse this thing, it needs to keep a little stack of what you're picking. So if we choose the user package, then there's a variety of folders that are in here. So we may pick, you know, like the the macros folder, and then there's a single macro. Or we might pick the snippets folder, and now there's more folders in here. That's C#. And then there's files. So it needs to take all of those different things that you picked, that you chose the package, that you chose the snippets folder, that you chose the C# folder, that you chose this thing, and stick them all together in order to do stuff. So the question becomes, when we actually display the panel with a list of stuff, when we call this, when we get the list of items, how the hell does this know what's in there? Right? Yeah. It's a thing that I can see use cases for this sort of both ways. In the one sense, this functionality that's built in is literally every file in every package in the whole of Sublime. So you can very easily say the user Linux key map, and it'll find it for you. If you don't know where exactly the thing that you want to open exists, but you know it's a Sublime key map file, then this is a very handy thing to be able to find all of that stuff. On the other hand, if you only want to deal with stuff that's inside of the default package, because that's one you want to open, the way that the filter works, all of this stuff is the default package, but also this is the default color scheme, and this is the default theme. There's a whole bunch more crap in here that doesn't necessarily matter to you. So being able to say, I want to open a resource and I want it to be in the default package, because we specifically declared the package, you know exactly what's in here. This could also just display only resources from this package, but it's sort of a nicer user experience to be like, I know it's inside of here. It's the exceptions for sending stuff to trash that I'm interested in, or the like. This is where stuff starts to get magic. How does this thing know what it's doing? The items that you pass to show quick panel is the list of things that you want to be in the list. We want those to be an object and not an array of an array of objects, sorry, instead of an array of strings like they are right now. We capture the captions by figuring out the folders that are in the current item, and also the stuff that are files in here. We combine those two things together because the way that all works. Folder entries could have more magic in them than they do. The twofold trick in this is this. This one works by knowing at the point where it's exploding crap out the type of a thing. Whether it's, in this particular case, whether it's an override or not an override, or whether it's the name of a directory or not the name of a directory, because of how it does stuff. I think this needs to be smarter. Know how magic this is? It's recursive. I'm very pleased with how small and tight this is, but I'm less pleased with how it actually works. Because when we can tell it specifically to explode the files from this list of resources that we just grabbed. And when we do that, it calls this function to handle this stuff, and it can invoke itself again, so that when the first part strips off, say, the first directory path, and then, as you can see here, if that's all there is, then we can just stick things in. Otherwise, we need to go to a whole nother level because there's another subdirectory, so we have to add a new list of items in here. The thing that it's storing in these arrays are just strings. But I think it can't include just strings. I think it has to include the objects in there. I guess the real question is, where does stuff get added into folders? Right here. Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, this might be something that we're going to have to... This isn't a quick little 10-minute job, essentially. Anything that appends into the list of files can embed the one thing. Anything that goes inside of there can do another thing. But those are objects that we need to... I don't know if the completion items are hashable or not. I guess it's not nearly necessary for the folders. It's really only necessary for the files. I don't think so. I mean, I hope not, because it took a long time to get this right. What we have in here is actually already in the repository, so we don't need to worry about anything there. We don't care about any of that crap. 138. Remember 138. Oh, that's why how we did that. Yeah, hang on. So here we go. We're snag that, and we'll go back to line 138. Oops, sorry. I think the fan blew some paper off over there. That's what we're looking at here, but I think we could do... I went too far, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Collects the stuff, then it asks the package browser to browse. So we're going to look up in here. In its display panel. I guess the real question is, can you mix and match? I'm not sure that you can. We only need one of those realistically. And we need you. I'm curious. If I... Oh, well, this console's a little out of control here. Let's say quick panel item is equal to sublime.quickPanel item. I am the panel item, and the second part of this is sublime.kind ID color bluish, and a P and the panel thing. So now we have a quick panel item, right? Now I need to say something like window.show quick panel, and we give it a list of items, which is 1, 2. On select. Lambda I print picked I. So there's two things. That's 0. Whoops. That one's 1, and if you push escape, it calls it with -1. Cool. What if the first one was 1, and the second one was quick panel item? Yeah, it's kind of what I thought. They both need to be quick panel items for any of them to be quick panel items. In theory. Or why are we unhappy about that? Oh, because they perhaps didn't create it appropriately? Nah, that can't be it. What if there was just one? Let's not go crazy here. Why does that work for the one thing and not for that? I see. Because I'm an idiot. This is the kind. Okay, let's try that again. Hey, look, that does work. Well, that's nice. That's the panel item. And it's 1, and sorry, 0, it's 1, and it's a thing. And now they're two the same. Let's package kind folder. It's going to have a little something like that in it, let's say. Let's stick that up at the top. We're just playing with this. So I'm not necessarily going to keep any of this. We don't need that. Whoops. Pardon me. We don't need that. We just need you. All right, well, I can see how that's going. Folders is equal to sublime dot quick panel item. It's not gonna. Oh, maybe it would work. Let's say F comma package kind folder for F in items self dot folders, and then this could just be folders. And then if we override audit, open resource, and choose default, Oh, it blows up real good, huh? Oh, maybe I shouldn't use the wrong stuff. Haha. I did it again, didn't I? Boy, how many times can one guy make the same mistake, I ask you. See, now it knows that that one's a folder. And I should be able to pick it. But that's where stuff causes a problem. Yeah. That's where this stuff is going to get tricky. We can add stuff in, but we need to be smarter about where this stuff actually comes from. Like something like that. Theoretically, that's not actually what we want here, but allows me to pick that. Oh, now it wants to combine it together. So the other part to do something with that is line 209. Like that. All right. This is kind of how you like work through this sort of thing. We open the resource, we open default, we open that. The list object has no. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, what we're going to say about that is I need to redact that stuff away. It's clearly a thing that we can do. Part of the reason why this is going to go poorly for us right now is that there's no distinction made by anything anywhere throughout this entire operation for whether something is a quick panel item or a string. So right now it assumes strings everywhere. In order for us to get this working, everywhere that deals with a folder and everywhere that deals with a file needs to have a quick panel item, and they need to all be set up the same way. We can get the trigger text, which is the actual text that's displayed in the panel for everything everywhere. It's not easy to do that unless we modify absolutely everything. And that also means that we need to potentially do some magic on how we store those exploded objects so that we can store a bunch of these things, because the information about what's an override and what's not is only available at the beginning before everything gets all exploded out. So that needs to be conveyed into the exploderizer to ensure that it knows that when it eventually gets to the file name part, that the kind information that's associated with it is an override and not a regular resource. That's going to take a little bit of thinking, and that's not something we're going to do right now because we're a little bit behind the 8-ball on time. So we're just going to get rid of all of that for now and reload so that the package will still continue to work for me. And with that, I think that we're going to call it there. Normally on the Doing Day streams, I only go until about 10 o'clock, but this is kind of an interesting problem. And I remember looking at it a few months ago and thinking, I see why I never did this before. I needed to reacquaint myself with all of the terribleness of this. But as you could see from looking at this code, there is some aspects of it that are, it's clever code, it's recursive code, which is, one of those real finger quotey clever type operations. So the trick is to factor it such that it still is as clever as it is now, but the data that it eventually gets is what we want. And I'm imagining the first step to that is in dealing with that one function that knows how to explode everything out and make a cache. We need that to display nothing but quick panel items. Once we have that, then working through all of the other stuff will be a lot easier to do. Because a quick panel item can be turned into that trigger text. We might need to inject some extra code to extract it out to know about indexes or something, but not that big of a deal. But in any case, that's going to do it for this stream. The replay for this is going to become unlisted once the stream ends. If you'd like to go back over anything that we've done here or any of the other prior live streams, there's a link down in the description to the Sublime Text live playlist. Everything automatically gets added to there. We'll be back on Monday, and of course, as we know, on Wednesdays and Fridays I stream on Twitch. Link should also be down in the description below. We're going to be working on something slightly different. We're going to be working on some website related stuff using Svelte and some UI kits. So hope to see you then. And don't forget, work on videos is commencing, as I mentioned earlier. I might even have some sort of intro to the channel video to do as well. It'll be exciting times. Hope you guys have a fantastic week. Maybe I'll see you in the Twitch live stream, but if I don't, I'll see you next Monday. And until then, I want you to please have a sublime week. Good night, everybody.